Hi, welcome to the Chinese Island exhibit. The idea for Chinese Island emerged from my thinking about a practical problem faced by my students learning Chinese that I observed many years ago. At the time, it struck me that my third year students, despite having learned Chinese for at least 3 years and being able to read in Chinese reasonably well, were seemingly unable to express themselves confidently or coherently in spoken Chinese in ad hoc situations. The problem was similar for my introductory level students, but this was not unexpected, as they had much more limited exposure to learning the language at that level. I personally spent about 5 years studying in China. During that time, my experience was that I learned as much, if not more, outside the classroom than I did in it. Living in the language and cultural environment provided me with ample opportunities to use the language I was learning from a textbook in the classroom out in everyday life. While there were reasonably high costs to making mistakes, so for example embarrassment, I was being able to make mistakes, to go back and think about them, and then try again the next day was an invaluable learning opportunity. Most of my students at both introductory and third year level were and are not from homes where Chinese is spoken, so their contact with the
我比
language
较喜欢这里
was
的
and
工
is
作。
limited
你
to
为什
classroom
么来中
interaction,
国呢？
after class assignments, and tests. Moreover, while spending time in a country where Mandarin is the everyday language would be
抱
desirable,
歉，
this
抱
is not
歉。
something that all students can do for various reasons, nor is it something that can be done during a university semester. There was another factor that influenced my thinking about a solution to this lack of opportunity. The Chinese Studies program at Monash has, for the last 20 or more years, run an intensive summer program at the end of each year, where students can spend 3 or 6 weeks studying our curriculum in China. Students eat, live, study, play, sleep on the ground, immersed in the culture and language. For 6 years, I traveled to China and stayed with the students for 6 weeks to provide pastoral care and administrative services. Every year, a proportion of the students would inevitably become ill, sometimes more from hard play than from hard work, and need to see a doctor. To my surprise, even some of those students at more advanced levels would call me, sometimes in the middle of the night, and ask me to accompany them to the university medical clinic to see a doctor. Despite supposedly being at a relatively advanced level of language learning, their unfamiliarity with the process for seeing a doctor in China and the attendant vocabulary, in addition to being sick, meant that they were very stressed by having to deal with the situation on their own. As a result, when designing lessons, activities, tasks for the virtual environment, I had and have two main foci. The first is to utilize the topics, vocabulary, grammar, and cultural knowledge set out in the main textbook. The idea is to keep things as relevant to what students are learning in the classroom as possible and to give them a chance to revise, practice, and consolidate that material in a different context. The second focus was to incorporate aspects of real life situations a student or anyone living in China would potentially encounter, thus creating the conditions for situated learning. On this basis, I wanted to create a virtual environment that included virtual versions of some of the places where these everyday activities would occur in real life. My goal
大
was to
蒜，
have students
大
actively
蒜，
using their language skills in
辣
this virtual
椒，
environment.
辣椒，